Hello and welcome to the walk-off, everybody. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack, and we
Adam, wet
have
blanket Mac.
Adam Wet Blanket Mack. Can we get a glass of cold water for the man because he's gonna need it? Honestly though, dude, some very major news dropping last night that the Toronto Blue Jays are the winner of the Max Scherzer. I don't know if we can call it sweepstakes, but you know what? A pretty darn good little signing, a 1 year deal, $15.5 million, and Hall of Famer Max Scherzer is a Toronto Blue Jay. And I know that he is 40. I know that last year he was in recovery move from his back surgery. I know he only pitched 43 innings. I know all of that. Still love this move, man. This just feels like a home run, like a win-win. It's not like this starting staff is a bunch of spring chickens or anything, but I really don't care what age you are. I really do just feel like someone like a Max Scherzer's ilk and intensity is going to be a boon for this rotation. And I swear to God, Adam, if you pour cold water on this, I will lose my mind. But I am curious, what was your initial reaction to Mad Max coming north of the border?
Okay, first of all, let me preface this. I like the signing.
Yes.
I'm happy with it. I got, I would say within an hour of the news breaking, a message from 7 different people that texted me who are some diehard Jays fans, such as yourself and Joel, some who I didn't know they were even Jays fans, but
Yeah.
know I do the podcast and we're excited about this deal. So
Mhm.
that's cool. I like it. We need a starting pitcher. We got a starting pitcher.
Mhm.
1 year deal, no downside. Right?
Injury
Brace
questions
your
for sure.
brace yourself for the cold water here. He's a solid number 4 or 5 for
Yeah. Yeah,
us.
I would say so.
He's just not the Cy Young guy that I think a
Mhm.
lot of, especially casual fans that hear the name and go, holy shit, like maybe don't realize that, like, oh, he's not 36.
He's not. He's not.
Like 36 is old. He's going to be 41 this year. He's not, he's not going to give us 200 innings. He's
No.
maybe going to give us 20 starts, 25 starts.
I
I,
think if
I
if
don't expect
he
32 starts out of him.
if he can hit 100 to 120 innings and give us 20 starts, I think that is exactly what this lineup needed. And I think that we could see
Yeah,
some
it's
creative ways of running this rotation with Max because I
yes.
do think that it would be beneficial for this organization to give him some rest here and there. Maybe he starts 3 starts in a row on 5 days rest and then you just skip him for a start. Move long man Yariel Rodriguez up from the pen for a spot start. Bring in Jake Bloss from
Or
AAA for a spot start. Something like that.
every week this year where we have 2 off days, where we're playing 5 games in 7 days instead of six in
Mhm.
7 days. I think you just skip his start whenever you can and you go right to the next guy and you go, hey Gossman, you're not getting 6 days rest. You're getting 5, you're getting your standard rest, but we're skipping a Scherzer start and you're back in.
Yeah.
You, ideally, you've got a guy who can pitch a pressure game for you in the world, like in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And
it
honestly, people are going to hate this. Intangibles. Love them. Love the
Sure.
intangibles with this deal. This is a clubhouse guy, and I think that there were some clubhouse problems last year. I don't think that it was like anything glaring. I think that losing and the frustration and the veterans were just frustrated with where the team was at. And I think bringing in a guy like Max Scherzer is going to amplify this team's focus, because that is one thing Mad Max is known for, is he's incredibly focused, he's incredibly intense, and this is not a bad thing to have on your team. And I really like this deal for,
Bobachet's gonna love it.
I mean, listen, there's reasons why they did this move, right? I mean, the experience that you are bringing in cannot be measured. It's really difficult to put a value to it, but there is huge value in it. I think it really bridges the Jays year to next year, right? Like 2026, I think that this line, obviously, this starting rotation is going to look vastly different in 2026 than it does right now. Chris Bassett's a free agent at the end of the year. Max Scherzer's only on a 1 year deal. You're going to have Barrios as like the mainstay guy sticking around. You got 1 more year of Gosman. Who knows what goes on there? And then I think the rest of the lineup literally works out as Manoah, Bloss, Tiedemann, Rodriguez, all of these guys, minimal major league experience, and having a dude like Scherzer there while these guys are making spot starts or learning the ropes of the major leagues is just nothing but good news. Now, if you're going to look at Max Scherzer and expect him to be the Cy Young candidate that we've seen in the past, I think that's a silly expectation. I mean, there was a fairly major velocity drop last year, and hopefully that now that he's had time to rehab after his back surgery, that we're going to see an uptick in his fastball. He didn't hit 95 miles an hour once last year. Now, this was over 43 innings. And again, this is coming off a major surgery. That said, he still pitched extremely well in his late 30s. And if you look at the record of pitchers who pitch in their 40s, they actually do really well. And Adam, the reason for that is because if you're going to get to the point where they're pitching you when you're in your 40s, you're probably a phenom, right? You're probably a albatross, a one in a
An
one of a kind, a
outlier. Yeah.
unicorn. Exactly. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I'm happy with it. Again, for me, the wet blanket of it all is just like I'm just seeing posts online that are like, do we forgive Ross now? Like, it, did we win the off season? Like we've got
Yeah.
all these pieces that we needed. If we extend
Which
Vladdy now, is
which
Ross
is
Atkins
nice to
off the
see.
hook?
Yeah.
It's nice to see, but that's the overreaction that I want to go, calm down. We just added a number five who's not going to give us a full workload this year. Like
But it is a number
the
5 or a number 4 this team needed. And
yes,
it does fill an area or a hole that they had. So, you know what? I'm
you're too
happy.
positive, Scott. You're too positive. I'm too negative. Comments on Monday are going to suck.
Yeah.
It's
Well, honestly, and you're excited. Like, listen, we still need. We all lived through 2024. It's not insane for this fan base to want to see this firsthand before they get excited. And I understand that. And I think that, you know what, if this organization can start hot in April instead of shit in the bed like kind of has been their MO, I think you're going to see packed stadiums. I think you're going to see an excited fan base. I want that. And you know what, man? Bringing in Max Scherzer, and this is something that we will talk about a little bit more later in the episode, but it does bring in some name cachet where maybe there is a way for a Pete Alonso to, yeah, take a 3 year deal with an opt out after one, front loaded, because you know what? I wanna the Blue Jays seem like they're going all in for 2025. So if I've got to be one place for 1 year before hitting free agency again, why not Toronto?
if the Scherzer signing moves the needle on Alonso and Alonso moves the needle on Vladdy, and it's just the first, I don't want to say the first domino because like we did make the Hoffman signing and the Santander sign. Like whatever. This is hopefully the third of five moves, and I'm including Vlad re-signing as one of those moves. Um, it's just not a number one or two guy that was going to make our whole lineup that much better. Like, I just worry that
Yes,
we're getting too excited over the name. Look, if he's healthy, if he even gets us 25 or 20 to 25 starts, there
this
is
is a win.
a very real chance he gets to 3,500 career strikeouts as a Blue Jay. That's pretty cool. He's
Yeah.
93 away right now.
Hmm.
Um, he's going to sell a lot of jerseys. It was
Hmm.
like literally the first thing you texted me after the news
I know.
was Scherzer Blue Jays jersey. I'm getting one. Iconic. Um,
Which I know will upset people who are still hating on this front office because they're like, no, that's what we're not supposed to do. But it's like, come on.
they're,
A Max
they're not going to.
Scherzer Blue Jays jersey? Like, what? That's the coolest thing ever in 25 years.
Well, they're not going to like my Ross Atkins jersey that I've got on the way. So it just says Atkins, and then the number is one, of course, because we're
Mhm.
number one with
And whenever
Atkins.
someone asks you about it, you're just like, I just hope he's happy.
I just hope he's happy and living his best life. I hope he's feeling it, is what I say. Yeah, so no, like again, I am happy with the move. I like it. I think
This team
he
is better than
improves the
they
team.
were
It's
24
two
hours
days
ago,
ago.
for sure.
Yes, agreed. I just don't think it is I don't think it solves our starting rotation the way a lot of other options might have.
It's not Dylan Cease. It's not Michael King. It's not one of these high end guys that some of the Blue Jays have been tied to in the trade market. It's not
Not Jack Flaherty.
exactly. But you know what? It does fill an area of need and the intangibles of it. Let's get excited about it, right? So
Yes, sure.
lots to talk about here today. We are obviously the first topic is Max Scherzer. We're well into that already. We are going to also touch on can you spend your way to happiness? Because Ross Atkins sure giving it a try here. We'll talk this payroll, which is ballooning. Atkins having his all in moment. We'll dive into that. Is this it? And I think both you and I are kind of on the same page here, Adam, as don't stop here. Like, keep going. This is what this team needed to do going into this offseason, which was revamp the lineup in a way that fills all their holes. And guess what? The bullpen has been addressed beautifully. We'll see how it works out, but right now sure looks a lot better on paper than last year. There was a hole in the starting rotation that has been addressed. There was a hole at cleanup hitter, something that this organization has refused to address for 2 years. And all of a sudden, they have a legit cleanup power threat in Anthony Santander and a switch hitter and an efficient switch hitter for the first time in years. So all of this is lining up nicely, but again, for how much money they've spent right now, like don't stop. Like just let's get another bat. Anyways, we'll dive into that because Shai Davidi hints that maybe this is it. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll also dive into a feel good story to end things with Neftali Feliz. Very cool little tidbit about his career and the fact that he is being given another opportunity in the major leagues after 15 years. Some of you might remember Feliz won the Rookie of the Year back 15 years ago in the American League with the Texas Rangers. So
Hmm.
kind of crazy there. And we'll also play a little game, Adam, and this is right in your wheelhouse. So I was talking with a buddy a couple days ago, and he asked me, he's like, what do you think of this 2025 Blue Jays? And I was like, honestly, I am hopeful. I think they need another starter. Of course, Max Scherzer did that, and it was addressed there. I said, I would love to see another bat, but I'm tentatively positive. And he asked me a really interesting question because he's like, well, what's your biggest fear with this team? And I was like,
Okay.
oh God. So we're gonna purge these biggest fears and hopefully just You know the Viking tradition of setting the body on fire and pushing it out to sea? That's kind of the idea
Indeed.
here, right? We're gonna put our worst nightmare, we're gonna put it on a raft, we're gonna light it on fire, we're gonna send it out
Love it.
into baseball heaven.
Fun.
All right.
Valhalla.
To Valhalla. Okay, so Max Scherzer, just such a great ad. We'll touch on this before we get into Hey Big Spender. This is an incredibly small sample size, but if you want to get excited about incredibly small sample sizes, this is Max Scherzer's career at Rogers Center. This is in 6 games, 38.2 innings pitched, a 1.86 ERA, a whip of 0.93, 10.2 Ks per 9 innings, and a 1.6 walk rate over 9. Not too
He
shabby.
has, that's really good. He has a chance to double his career innings at the Rogers Center this year.
Yeah, he really does. Hopefully they match his numbers at the Rogers Center so far. It would be
That'd be
beautiful.
all right. That'd be all right.
So the big question in life is always, can money buy happiness? In baseball, can it buy a winning team? Time will tell, but my God, dude, Ross Atkins is giving it the old college try here. And for a
Mhm.
front office that up until this year, literally their MO was erring on the side of caution, right? Being steadfast in their evaluations. The purse strings now feel wide open, and I'm not saying that they're being reckless with it, but they're definitely addressing areas of need with cash. This team is over the first luxury tax threshold. Obviously, the total isn't counted, by the way, until the end of the season, but it looks like they're going to be over the second luxury tax threshold. And if you just look at the money right now, as is in the American League, the Toronto Blue Jays, and this is the 2025 payrolls here, they sit second with $256 million on the books. This is the most this organization has ever spent. It is the highest on this list of American League teams they've ever been, sitting at number 2 behind only the New York Yankees, who currently have 291 million on their books. They are 30 some million ahead of the Rangers, who sit at number 3 at 222, and the Astros, who sit at 219. And then they're literally almost 60 million more than the number 5 team, the Boston Red Sox. It's an expensive group.
It is.
And I know that Mark Shapiro started his tenure with the Blue Jays by completely raking Alex Anthopoulos over the coals for leaving him such an old, aging team with the cupboards bare. And here we are,
Yeah.
10 years later, with an aging, expensive team, and the cupboards are pretty bare. By the way, I really do think that this farm system isn't quite as bad as some people let on, but that's fine.
The
It's still a bottom
the
third.
upside of missing out on Sasaki, because I know
Mm-hmm.
after we traded for
Miles
Bradley
Straw.
Zimmer, sorry,
Yeah.
Miles Straw, is that we got all that free agent money and then lost out on Sasaki anyways. We spent it all.
They did. Yeah.
We,
They went out
we
and
got a lot of international prospects. That helps top the farm system back up, right? So that's
second
still a
most
good news.
second most international signings that this organization's ever made, by the way. So they were out there spending that money, that 2 extra million bucks they got for Miles Straw, put it to work.
So few extra lottery tickets, right? There's a chance one pans out. That's all you're asking for. So
Grounds
there you go.
crew,
That's some happy upside. I would
Grounds
say,
crew, I before I let you finish your thought,
mhm.
I just want people to put, because we want to address this in mailbag. How are you feeling about the team in general, but more specifically about this payroll, about being such a high spender? I mean, it's not our money, and if they're gonna keep filling out the roster this way, I'm all for it. It does feel like obviously this team better be successful, because if they're not, my God, we could see a strip down like we haven't seen since the early 2000s, which would be tough to swallow. But um, yeah, go ahead and finish your thought on this payroll here. By the way, the bottom, for those of you wondering, who's the lowest on the American League list? It is the Chicago White Sox at 68 million. And then the A's are at 84 million. Now the A's actually still need to spend like $25 million if they're going to get revenue sharing this year. So I think that we're going to see the A's make another move or two, which is crazy. Um, Third bottom in the American League is the Rays at 87 million, and of course they're still going to be a top contender this year because they're super annoying.
Speaking of crazy stats, this is a stupid one. I saw a list of it was like ranking MLB teams by home stadium distance to nearest Dunkin' Donuts. Virtually every team was within like 2 miles of a Dunkin' Donuts.
Except
Okay.
for Toronto.
Actually,
Oh,
Toronto is within, I think, 8 miles of a Dunkin' Donuts, probably in Detroit.
okay.
But can you name? There is one team. Okay, so
First of
Toronto
all,
is,
Toronto is not 8 miles from Detroit, but I get what
well,
you're saying.
okay. I don't know where it is then. I'm Windsor? I don't know. Where's the Dunkin' Donuts? It's 8 miles away, apparently. I don't
Okay.
know how math works. Maybe there's one in Toronto. I don't know. Is there a
There
Dunkin'
must
Donuts in
be.
Toronto? Must be. Okay. The comment section on this post was guessing Detroit. That's why I guessed Detroit. I've never been to either place.
Yes.
There is one. Okay, so it's Toronto's second furthest away from a Dunkin' Donuts at like 8 miles. The 30th place team is like 400 miles away.
Oh.
So literally 29 out of 30 teams are within 10 miles of a Dunkin' Donuts. 28 out of 30 are within like 2 miles of a Dunkin' Donuts. And then one team is like 439 miles from a Dunkin' Donuts. You need to guess where. Your clue is once I tell you where, it's going to make total sense. You're going to go, oh, yeah, of course it's that place.
Seattle.
Yeah.
Ah, come
Home of
on.
home of Starbucks.
Come on.
So, of course they're not yielding any coffee shops to a Dunkin' Donuts location. It's all
Man,
Starbucks. So, there you go. Well
I
done. You
feel so
nailed that.
smart right now. I feel so
Well
smart.
done.
Yeah.
Well done. Can money buy happiness? Yeah, this is a big payroll. I think we all feel good right now.
Hmm.
I feel cautiously optimistic. Um, still do need one more big move for me to call this a plus season. Like it is just,
I, I feel the same way, dude. I
you
think that
know,
this lineup still needs another bat. It needs a little bit more offense, but I mean,
even if not, we're in a position to fight for a playoff spot,
I think
which I
they
don't
are.
think we were in November.
Yes,
So
I would agree.
it's still we did what we needed to do. We did surpass the bare minimum
Yes.
required to be a
Yes.
playoff team potentially next year. So that's good. I don't know if this is still a good off season that like we can give Ross Atkins like all the flowers for after missing out on everything that he missed out on. It does just kind of sorry to be the wet blanket.
No, no,
Feel
no, but
like
let's talk about what we would need to see for this to be a success because I think a Vladdy extension is very important in the overall picture of the fan base's view of the success of this offseason. Would you agree with that?
a Vladdy extension.
Like, how do you feel if they wind up? And I'm just going to use Pete
Okay,
Alonso's name because he's
sure.
been tied to this team for so long
Yeah.
now. And I know that he wants to go back to the Mets really bad, obviously, or he'd already be in Toronto. But
Mhm.
let's say Pete Alonso, they somehow wind up landing him. How do you feel about this offseason without a Vladdy extension, but with a Pete Alonso addition?
I think that's best case scenario. I don't if we get a Vladdy extension, my mind is going to be blown whether
Yeah.
Alonso's here or not, because I just think it's so unlikely that
Mhm.
like I can't even hold that against Ross when I'm
Yeah.
evaluating this offseason. I can hold it against him in the grander picture,
Yes, of
right?
course.
Of his entire resume, we can hold that against him. But even then,
It's like saying it's like even judging this offseason, right? Like I have been impressed with what he's done this offseason, but also all the holes and areas of need that he needed was on him to begin with, right? Like,
oh, I mean, I guess it's like if you go away for the weekend and then your roommate throws a party and trashes the house and then cleans up a little bit afterwards.
yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, do I get praise for cleaning up all the beer cans?" You're like, "Well, no, you made the mess.
Yeah.
Like you just
I
brought
mean,
us
thank
back
you.
to, yeah,
It's
I'm
great that
glad
the
you
house is
did.
in order again.
Way
Yes.
better than not having done that." But it's not like you built an extension in the backyard and now we have a pergola to drink our sangria. Like it's just,
And you know what,
yeah,
Adam?
Vladdy extension. I don't know if he got Vlad extended, A plus,
Yeah.
kudos, tip of the cap, well done to the moon.
Yeah.
Pete Alonso or Bregman or whoever else we get as a one more big name
Yeah.
offensive weapon. Yeah, I would say this offseason would be a huge success. I fucking want him to just do whatever it takes on Pete Alonso though. Like I am frustrated to hear that we've got a 75 million over 3 offer and that the Mets are at around 68 over 3 and there are some like weird opt-out wrinkles and
Yeah.
stuff, but that he still was like hoping the Mets will at least match the Jays. And that's where like we don't have the killer instinct to close it, right? Like
Yeah.
whether we're bluffing or not, but there needs to be some like power move of like, hey, here's our final offer, but as soon as you leave the room, we're fucking moving on and we're going to get Bregman or somebody else, right? Like
Yeah.
there needs to be a little bit of a shit or get off the pot ultimatum that I've just never seen us do, and it seems like we're always losing out on.
Hmm.
Is that everybody gets to get the high offer from the Jays and then gets to go back to the team they want with the Jays offer and say, "Can you
Yeah.
if you can match the Jays, I'll be
Yeah.
a Met tomorrow."
Yeah.
Right? And we just are
And that
constantly
does
losing
get
that. So
frustrating. That does
let's
get
just go to
frustrating.
80. Just say, "Hey, we'll give you 80 then." But you hang up the phone and we're burning it. We're moving on and that's it. Then you're getting 68 from the Mets. It's
And
80
this
from us
is
right now. We're at 68 from the Mets. Do you want another 12 million bucks or not? Like we've got to just, that's where I need to see to give Ross Atkins some flowers for me.
this is why um this offseason has been so intriguing to me is
Yeah.
that this is, and I truly believe this is Ross Atkins' version of going all in. It
Yeah.
really is. It really is. Listen, I know that it's been incredibly measured and he hasn't had that killer instinct and there hasn't been that, you know what, this is our guy, let's make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
But he's getting it done and he is spending a lot of money, right? Like we all remember late July 2015, Alex Anthopoulos with his back against the wall, a 50-51 record. He was all but fired. His job was
Mm-hmm.
on the line, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he was going into the last 2 months of his tenure as a Toronto Blue Jays, which it wound up being anyways, but he put his chips in. He went out and he got David Price. He got Troy Tulowitzki, and it was a explosion laden off season
Mm-hmm.
or trade deadline,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there was fireworks and the Jays fans were ecstatic, and it was one of the most exciting 2 month runs of baseball I have ever been involved in as a fan. And it started with fireworks at the trade deadline. And Ross Atkins is going all in, but there's no fireworks. This is just a measured approach of like, okay, we got this guy for the best deal we possibly could. Look at the price we paid for Anthony Santander, far below what everyone thought it would be going into the offseason. That's a win. I'm a genius. Check it off, right?
Mhm.
Um, we'll see where it goes. But I will say this, dude. Fuck stopping now. Like, they're so close to this
Yeah.
being a very strong team, right? So, like, go out and get that guy. And I mean, yeah, there are some question marks and things can go wrong for this team. And we are going to discuss our nightmare scenarios, and I'm sure stuff will come up there. But right now, as you look at this team, there's holes on all of the American League East division teams, right? Like, all of them have question marks around certain
Yeah.
areas. And you got to play the games. And listen, I know there's probably people that are pulling their hair out listening to this. They can't believe how positive we're being. And I mean, if I know our fan base and our listeners, there's just as many of you out there being like, why the hell are you guys so negative right now? So I don't know. But I will say I feel good about where this team is at right now. They need to do more. Do not stop. And I hope they don't. And listen, I know there's reasons to believe maybe they will stop. Like, Shai Davidi of Sportsnet. Love Shai, by the way. Friend of the show. He's come on numerous times. He stated that this could very well be it. Now, he also said that before the Scherzer signing. And he also stated that they were limited in their spending at the beginning of the offseason. And that has not been the case at all. So I will say we do need to keep in mind that the Blue Jays do not feed their own, right? Shai Davidi, Ben Nicholson Smith, Arden Zwelling, all very, very good baseball analysts, and they know their stuff. Are we ever going to see Rogers float some information their way so that they can beat the story and beat the American analysts? No way. No fucking way. We've never seen it happen. The Blue Jays broke their own Jeff Hoffman signing. Like, it was literally the Toronto Blue Jays on Twitter, and then Shai Davidi's retweeting it and giving like, so as much as I respect Shai and his knowledge of the game, he's guessing. Is it a good guess
That's
that they might be done? Maybe.
that's a really good point that you bring up about not feeding their own. It is a weird like power dynamic. Like it feels like there is a bit of a like we don't want any of you to be stars so that you don't have leverage. When it comes to negotiations or whatever, next time your contract's
Mm-hmm.
up, right? Like Rogers wants Shy to be Shy.
Yeah.
They don't want him to be Jeff Passan.
No.
They don't want him to be a legitimate, like not a legitimate. That's way too harsh of a term,
Yeah, because
right?
he's obviously very legitimate, but they
Super
don't want.
legitimate, right?
Yeah,
But they
they.
don't want him to be on the echelon of like a Ken Rosenthal or a John Morosi or a Jeff Passan or any sort of a Canadian equivalent
Yeah.
of that, right? So yeah, he's not going to be one to break news. Um, and that is weird to me. Like I get it. I think from like if you're trying to save money, dollars and cents point of view. But that just seems so terrible. I
Mhm.
hate that. That is awful, honestly.
I feel for them.
Me too.
Like,
That's what I mean. I would be so fucking like frustrated to be cooped up in an organization where the media and the team are owned by the same thing, but I can't get a fucking breadcrumb on a big story.
so I wound up going for beers with Keegan Matheson
Hmm.
last week, and we wound up getting into it. We just
Hmm.
drank too much, basically. But, and I'm not gonna like, you know, tell everyone Keegan's like frustrations and secrets
Laundry.
and stuff.
Yeah.
But one thing he did mention is he was like, I don't know how those Sportsnet boys do it. He's like, because I get super frustrated with how this front office operates with
Yeah.
the news and the way that
Hmm.
they hold on to their information. And he's like, these guys work for them.
Yeah.
Like it is weird.
It's
So
like
I
finding out your mom and dad are getting divorced from a classmate.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Like, what?
Little Timmy's like, hey, sorry to hear. And you're like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
Yeah. 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 No, it's wild. It's crazy. So yeah, all jokes aside, if Shy is saying they might be done, that
Who
doesn't
knows?
mean he's
It
got
doesn't mean
insider
anything.
information that's
Exactly.
conclusive on that.
Yeah, it's and Shy's very smart, right? So obviously he's using deductive
Very
reasoning
educated guess.
and
Yeah.
can look at the past examples of what this front office has done over free agency. And yeah, like if you're just looking at what they've normally done, I would say they are done because this is probably the most heavy lifting they've done in any free agent offseason in their entire tenure, right? Like we touched
Yeah.
on this off the top of the show. This is not this front office's MO. And it's so weird that the direction that this organization decided to go was spending big bucks. It's not
Well,
that weird because they don't develop any talent, so that you kind of back yourself into a corner. But
from a like spin doctor perspective too, if you're like Rogers and you still want Pete Alonso or you still want Bregman. If you lose out on him though, this way you can still push the narrative of like, no,
we
we
gave it
got
our
what we
all.
wanted.
Yeah.
Scherzer was our cherry on top of a great offseason. This offseason was a success. We made some good efforts on some guys we were interested in. It didn't work out, but here's the like we're moving forward with the team we wanted, and you end on the high note of literally like probably first ballot Hall of Famer Max Scherzer.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say no, we're not done, we still want Alonso, and then you don't get it, then it's like, you know, instead of ending on a win, you're ending on a disappointment. And I
Yeah.
don't think I don't think you need to put yourself in that corner. So like it makes sense to just tell your Sportsnet guys like, hey, put it out there that we're probably done.
Mm-hmm.
Off the record, we're not done. We definitely still fucking are trying hard for Pete Alonso, maybe Ann Bregman or however you want to put that or whatever, right? We
And
still
who
want one
knows?
more piece,
Like that's
but
the thing, right? Is we don't know the names, and the trade market is still wide open, and the Blue Jays
yeah.
do have an influx of middle infielders that there just isn't at bats for between AAA and the big leagues, so we could see something happen.
Highest payroll in franchise history. It's really hard, like to to be fair and say, is that it? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
Like to be fair,
yeah.
we're spending more money than we've literally ever spent before. It's tough to be like,
Now, the reason they have to is because they have
yes,
completely dropped the ball on player development and drafting over
yes,
the last 10 years. But
yes.
I, I do give credit where credit is due, at least to Rogers Communications, if not this front office, for spending money. I know that they have to. If you're going to be competitive, you literally have to because you haven't set yourself up like the Tampa Bay Rays or the Cleveland Guardians have, right? So
Do you think there's a world? Do you think there's any chance that Rogers is so obtuse that they'd be okay with us losing Vladdy and Bo?
no.
Like they have to, whatever. Maybe you can't keep both. And whatever. If Bo's gone, he's gone. But they have to know that that's gonna fucking really set the fan base support miles behind, right? Like, never mind winning and losing and whatever. To lose Bo and Vlad next offseason, they have to be aware that, like, okay, we'll fucking pay whatever we got to pay. We can't lose. We we can't just put Dalton Varsho in Uncrustables commercials
Yeah.
next to Andre Jimenez and expect the fans to be like, yeah, Max Scherzer bobblehead night.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. They have to, right? This has to be whatever he wants kind of money. Like,
I mean, it's sure shaping up that way, dude. And I don't know how this is going to play out. And maybe the truth is, and we've talked about this before, the Blue Jays are at the point where they are going to let him go to free agency. And they still feel that they have the financial clout to go get him in free agency. And maybe they truly believe that on the open market, he'll get less than what he's asking for. Dangerous game to play. And I know this was one thing that when Jolly Olive, Jack from John Boy, came on the show on Wednesday, he was talking about, right? It's just like, yeah, it is possible, but you know who has holes at first base going into 2026? the New York Mets, the New York Yankees, and the Boston Red Sox. And if you're looking at those teams and you're like, hey,
Maybe we'll get a discount.
they won't be
The
big
market isn't
players.
there
I
for
don't
it.
know,
Yeah.
right? Again, and it's going to be a risk either way, whether they can sign him and extend him now or whether they go to free agency. But man,
Is
I'm
there a
sure feel
chance?
better.
Is there a chance we can get like a reverse Shohei Ohtani situation with Vlad next year, where like it really looks like he's going to the Yankees for 700 million, and then he signs in Toronto for 500 million,
Yeah.
and
I
he's like,
mean,
"Fuck the Yankees," and his plane just keeps flying.
and that's the thing is that 500 million, he's still making more than any first baseman in the history of baseball. And on top of that, I mean, who knows? Juan Soto might wind up playing first
Playing
base and
first.
DHing, but like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but that being
I.
said, like that's still a ton of money and more than he is expected to get right now. So we'll
Mhm.
see. I mean, there are still rumors out there. Hector Gomez loves a good rumor, and he's kind of stated as saying that the Blue Jays and Vladdy's camps are getting much, much closer to a number to agree on.
Mhm.
I mean, time will tell. We're just guessing at this point. On
Ah,
that,
hope he stays.
let's
Oh,
get
sorry.
into
I did just one last thing. This
yeah,
is a quick thing. Because you mentioned Juan Soto might end up playing first base. I did see a MLB.com listing of like the according to fan vote the top first baseman, top 10 first baseman in Major League Baseball. Number one was Freddie Freeman. Number two was Vladdy, and then number three was Bryce Harper.
yeah,
And it just
yeah.
makes me laugh.
There you go. That bat, man. If you can hit and you can be serviceable at first
Hmm.
base, you are everything a team would want.
So for
Um,
Pete Alonso, tell that to Pete
yeah,
Alonso.
exactly. Crazy. Okay, we're gonna play a little fun game, and if you are averse to negativity, this might be a tough one for you. But I will say this: this is a cathartic exercise of getting these dark thoughts out of our mind. These are the
Hmm.
worst case scenarios, and what this all stemmed from a conversation I had with my buddy a couple days ago. We were having a beer, and basically he was asking me how I thought the Jays were going to be and if I'm hopeful. And I said, yes, I am hopeful. And I do like what they've done. If they can add another starter, this was before the Scherzer signing.
Hmm.
And if they can get another bat, I'm all on board.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then he said something that kind of made me laugh. And I was like, geez, I hadn't really like vocalized this. He's like, well, what's your worst case scenario? Like, what is your nightmare scenario? And so that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to open this up to you, the grounds crew here as well. What is your nightmare scenario for this team? Um, what would be the worst case for you to watch? And we'll kind of dive into a few of these in
Okay.
mailbag.
Mailbag.
Again, let's not view this as being negative. Let's view this as getting it out there. We're putting these horrible nightmare thoughts on a bed of wood. We're lighting it on fire. We're pushing it out to sea, giving it an old
Hmm.
Viking burial here. Do you want to start off here, Adam? Do you have a nightmare scenario, or do you want me to start?
Um, You can start. We're gonna go back and forth, right? Because I don't have like one worst thing, but I have
Yeah.
like five or six. Like these would all be terrible.
So, and I think that that's really where Jays fans are at in general, is that there are still a lot of question marks around this team. And with so much uncertainty long term, it does create anxiety towards where this organization is headed. And so, my biggest nightmare is, for lack of a better way of putting it, the sky falls.
They relocate to Nashville.
Well,
That would be the worst.
that would be the worst case scenario.
Blindsided too after
Yeah,
we spent all that on
blindsided.
the renos.
Yeah. The Renos they bulk up and then they're like, all right, 2026, Nashville Blue Jays, here we go. So my worst case scenario is the sky falls. And what that means is that there is a domino effect of bad luck that sinks this team. Um, let's start with Andre Jimenez.
Okay.
His bat doesn't rebound at all. I've stated numerous times, I think that this was a really good trade. I thought they traded high on Spencer Horowitz, and I don't think that we're going to wind up regretting this contract. I could wind up eating my words. And again, this is why
Okay.
this is part of my nightmare scenario.
Hmm.
Andre Jimenez does not work out offensively, and we're stuck with a defense first shortstop that's making almost 20 million a dollar, 20 million a year in his last couple of years.
Hmm.
Spencer Horowitz is a superstar in Pittsburgh and
Yeah.
completely makes us question why the heck we swapped him altogether. Um, in this scenario, too, Max Scherzer is injured most of the season and we don't get anything out of him. Kevin Gosman doesn't rebound. Like everyone knows what the worst case scenario kind of could be here, right? Is that
Hmm.
Spencer Horowitz winds up being a star and shocks us. We turns out we didn't sell high on him. We just sold. Um, Not being able to lock up Vladdy and Bo obviously is a big part of these worst case scenarios. And then this team just completely does not excel in 2025. They wind up selling off at the trade deadline with Shapiro and Atkins still at the helm. And then, despite the fact that they lose, somehow Shapiro keeps his job. I think Atkins is gone no matter what, unless they win, right? Like, I just don't think that there's a way that they can continue to strut out Ross Atkins. But even then,
You've
you're
been
just
saying
gonna.
this for 3 years.
I know, I know. So I guess maybe even part of this worst case scenario is Atkins does keep his job. Um, I don't know.
Well, that was a bit of a cheat to package
Everything
so
together.
many I thought we were going like one for one. Like
Okay.
the
You're like, you
the
took them
Jimenez
all.
deal doesn't work. Spencer is great with someone else. Like you really are hogging all the
The
nightmares
good.
here, buddy.
Okay, well then just
Like I
leave it
I was ready to
at the
throw one, like Nate Pearson, reliever of the year for the
Yeah.
Cubs.
It's funny that like some of these worst case scenarios for Blue Jays fans is just former players excelling in other organizations, right?
Taylor
Like,
Sacedo, Cy Young Award.
yeah,
Um, honestly, I'd actually be happy for.
I
I'd be
would
so
too. A
thrilled for
lefty
him.
reliever
That'd be
gets a
cool.
Cy Young. Let him do it.
No, he's a starter in this scenario,
In this
Scott.
scenario, they stretch him
It's
out and he kills it. Yeah.
yeah, 240 innings. It's wild. It's crazy. Um, okay, well, mine would be like
Yeah, just things not working out, right? Like,
mine would be we trade Bo to the Dodgers, and I'm just bummed out by the return.
yeah.
Like we don't get a single top 10 prospect back. Like not in all of baseball, but like in the Dodgers org. Like we just get like 12, 13, 16, and 17 back. And
Mhm.
it's just like, oh, cool. Pitching depth for AAA. Awesome. You know, I just, I'm worried about that. I'm worried that the team is
I
good, but
mean,
not good enough.
honestly,
I'm worried that we're, like, okay, here's where I'm at. This is my worst case scenario. We aren't good enough to make the playoffs, but we aren't bad enough to sell Bo Bichette and like be sellers at the deadline. Like we're gonna still be buyers at the deadline. We're still going to be like
yeah, we're the
we're gonna
Minnesota
trade
Twins.
away Alec Manoah. We're gonna trade away Orelvis Martinez to bring in
A Jordan
Justin
Hicks type.
Verlander
Yeah,
or something, and we're still gonna be a 84 win team at the end of it and miss the playoffs by 2 games. Like
that would suck. Especially
let's
because
either
you
be a
watch
good team and make the playoffs, or let's just be a dumpster fire and reckon with it.
the middle is scary, man.
Yep.
The middle's scary because you know what
Yep.
the middle does is, I mean, honestly, this all of these examples of worst case scenario, it all breaks down to I'm freaking terrified of a rebuild. And I know that
Yeah.
maybe that is actually the smartest thing that this team could do, but we're far past that at this point. That I mean, we're going forward in 2025, and if the big R word comes, it's next year or at the deadline. But yeah, I don't want to see it. Because they're in a scenario right now that if there is a rebuild, it could wind up being a long, dark, arduous time because they don't wind up getting anything for their assets, right? And you kind of
Yep.
stated that there, that they don't get enough for Bo. Vlad, they stick with because they are
They're
close
hopeful.
enough
Yeah.
that they can make the playoffs, and then they lose Vlad
Hmm.
because the Mets offer him 600 million. Like
Yeah.
this team is
Yeah.
old now. Like that is one thing that this team has is age.
We're not
And
the Orioles.
yeah, like they're not the Orioles. I don't know. Actually, talking about this, I do feel better because I'm like,
Yeah.
it can't all go wrong. Like,
Yeah,
and
I'm with you.
this is the thing too, right? Is that we always talk about like the dominoes of negative things that happen, but there could be a domino of good things, right? Like Alan Roden working out, or like one of these fringy minor league guys actually hitting would be so huge, right? Like, remember when Michael Harris II in Atlanta just emerged pretty much out
Yeah.
of nowhere and was all of a sudden like I think he won a silver slugger as the left fielder for the Braves that year and just like,
Hmm.
you know, they managed to still win the World Series even though Ronald Acuna Jr. was on the IL, right? Like, so
Hmm.
maybe something like that can happen. You never know. Like, I know everyone's down on the farm system, but there are some very viable toolsy guys that, it's not impossible they put it together. Josh Kasevich and Alan Roden specifically. All right, let's put a little positivity on this now.
Okay.
Let's give a little feel good story here. Um, So this is from MLB trade rumors.
Okay.
And they say the Mariners announced 31 non roster invitees to Major League Spring Training today, most of whom were in house prospects and previously reported veteran signees. One new name among the bunch is something of a blast from the past, as Seattle has invited former American League Rookie of the Year Neftali Feliz to big league camp. Feliz, 37 in May, hasn't pitched in the major leagues since 2021 when he pitched 1 inning for the Phillies and another 3 for the Dodgers. Prior to that, his last MLB stint came in 2017. So it's almost been a full 7 years for this guy since he's got a sniff of the big leagues. I know he had those couple innings there in 2021,
Well,
but still very cool.
yeah.
He spent 2022 to 2024 seasons pitching for 3 different clubs in the Mexican League and fared quite nicely in an extremely hitter friendly setting, logging a 2.37 earned run average. He also tallied 54 saves along the way. Feliz is last pitched with the Estrella Orientals in the Dominican Winter League. I actually saw him pitch at a game this year. And so it's kind of cool when I saw his name
That's
pop
sweet.
up as going to the Mariners at 37 because he was a guy that I even pointed out to Taylor when we were watching. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh shit, that was like 15 years ago. He was the Texas Rangers' big hope. Like he was like everything, right? American League Rookie of the Year, and just kind of fizzled out. And she even asked me, she's like, so he's done. I'm like, oh yeah, he's done. Like he, you never know.
There
Pretty
you go.
cool. So wish him all the best.
Very cool.
All right, folks. Always appreciate you watching. And if you are not subscribed to the channel, goes a long way. If you do so, hit that thumbs up. The like button always helps us out. Take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend. And we will see you on Tuesday for Mailbag and for you Patreon members on Monday for MLB Mondays. Cheers.
Cheers.